Hello, Canada Files viewers. This is Aidan Jonah, editor-in-chief of the Canada Files. I am here with Dimitri Lascaris, lawyer, journalist, and activist. He is either in Kalamata, Greece, or Montreal. Dimitri, thanks for joining the Canada Files.
Thank you for having me, Aiden.
All right, Dimitri. Well, we are talking about the Green Party today. We've seen the Green Party of Canada's Federal Council launch a bid to reinstall Jonathan Pedneault as co-leader. So, how did Pedneault first come to power as co-leader before he resigned, and why did he resign in the first place? Most parties don't have a co-leader.
Well, back in 2022, when he ran to be the leader of the Green Party of Canada, at the point at which he appeared as a candidate, he had virtually no history at all. As far as I know, with the Green Party, I've been heavily involved in the Green Party since 2007. I'd never heard of Pedno before 2022 when he suddenly appeared. And this all was eerily similar to what happened in the 2020 leadership contest in which I ran. The ultimate winner, Annamie Paul, came out of nowhere. She had absolutely no history with the Green Party, didn't understand the party, had never demonstrated, a real commitment to growing the party. She was basically parachuted into the contest and ultimately into the leadership by the outgoing leader, Elizabeth May. And she turned out to be a complete and utter disaster for the party, almost destroyed the party. Elizabeth May appears to have learned nothing from that experience, and she's clearly, I believe, grooming and has been back from 2020, Jonathan Pedneault to replace her when she ultimately, withdraws mercifully from Canadian federal politics, which she's going to have to do someday. Leader for life, can't go on forever. So I think she's grooming Jonathan Pedneault to replace her. And in the leadership contest in 2022, in late 2022, they ran on a joint ticket as co-leaders, even though there was no provision, none whatsoever, in the Constitution of the Green Party for co-leaders. The Green Party's constitution only provided for a single person to act as the leader of the party. So this was a very awkward and unworkable situation. And what happened, as far as I can tell, is that she gave assurances to Pedneault that she would do everything within her power if she won the leadership contest to have the Constitution amended so that he could be formally designated as the co-leader. This process ended up taking considerably longer, I think, than Pedneault would have liked. Again, now I can't sit here and tell you that I'm basing what I'm about to say on inside information. It's my interpretation of what happened, which may or may not be correct, but this is my sense of what happened. Pedneault became frustrated at the pace with which the constitutional amendment process was occurring. And it was not clear that ultimately the Constitution was going to be amended. And so he left in a huff. And when he left, he gave precious little indication for why he was leaving. I think that this is really a strong indication that he was leaving because he was unhappy with the fact that it was taking so long to amend the Constitution and formally designate him as co-leader. And when finally the constitutional process was nearing an end, he suddenly reappeared. He came back because now he could be formally designated as the co-leader of the party, and which, of course, I'm sure he believes will put him in a strong position to replace Elizabeth May when she finally mercifully withdraws from politics. And he came up with this song and dance. When they asked him, the media, why, he was coming back, he said, "Well, I'm coming back because of Donald Trump." I mean, I literally spit out my coffee when I read this remark. I mean, does Jonathan Pedneault actually think that he's going to have the ability to stop Donald Trump from doing whatever Donald Trump is going to do? I mean, seriously, I believe he came back because he was finally being afforded the opportunity. But anyways, I pretty much finished my answer to your first question. If you want to go on to your next question, go ahead.
Okay, so now let's talk about Pedno's views on the foreign policy front. What are they right now?
They're essentially aligned with that of the Liberal Party. I mean, I see no meaningful distinction between his views of foreign policy and the prevailing view within the Liberal Party elite. So to give you a prime example, under Amita Kutner, who was the interim leader of the party, uh, between the disastrous year in office of Annamie Paul and the installation of the new leader, Elizabeth May, or I should say, old leader returned to be the new leader. There was a clear party policy of opposition to sending weapons to Ukraine. It was unambiguous and explicit in a series of statements that Amita Kutner put out, admirably so. That was the right policy. So within 2 months of coming into office, Elizabeth May and her fake co-leader, and I say fake co-leader because there was no provision in the Constitution for Pedneault or anybody else to be the co-leader, they publicly announced, this was in January of 2023, that they supported the delivery of weapons to Ukraine. Now, they tried to dress this up as some kind of, principled policy that departed from, the prevailing view within the Liberal and the Conservative Party by saying that they only supported the delivery of defensive weapons to Ukraine. Okay. They never told us what defensive weapons are. And when Elizabeth May was pressed on this, she basically said, all the weapons that we've sent thus far to Ukraine, we support that. In other words, she implied that she regarded all of the weapons we had sent to Ukraine up until that point in time as defensive in nature. Well, the weapons included artillery shells. They included Leopard battle tanks. They included air defense systems. They included ammunition. I don't know what else we could have sent Ukraine other than what we sent. And she basically put all of that into the hopper of defensive weapons. Now, at the same time as she adopted this policy, which was just basically a policy of blanket approval of all the weapons that we had sent to Ukraine up until that point in time, she said a couple of other things. And so did Pedneault. They said initially that they believed that we should also, at the same time as we're arming Ukraine to the teeth, that we should be pushing for negotiations to end the war. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress went ballistic when they said this, and both Pedneault and Elizabeth May immediately retracted their statements, apologized profusely. Elizabeth May ended up going to some event at the UCC, the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, very hardcore, right-wing, pro-militarist, Russophobic organization. She went to an event they organized to try to make nice with them. And then they started to change their tune around the whole question of negotiations, and they started saying, well, eventually negotiations will be the right thing to do, but we have to put Ukraine into a position to obtain a just outcome before we can talk seriously about negotiations. Now, when they said this, Aidan, and you can find the article on my website, I said it repeatedly in a variety of different contexts. I had been saying it all the way back from 2022, okay? When they said this, I came out and said, the longer this war goes on, the more territory Ukraine is going to lose, the more people are going to die needlessly, the more infrastructure is going to be destroyed. And at the end of the day, Ukraine will be forced to get a worse settlement of this war than it could get today. And Aidan, this is exactly what has happened. Exactly what has happened. Since Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedneault changed the party's policies to support the arming of Ukraine, Ukraine has lost a lot of territory. It's lost Andreevka. It's lost Ugledar. It's lost Kurakhova. It just lost the last major fortified city or town in the southern Donbass. It's on the verge of losing the heavily fortified town of Toretsk. It's essentially lost Toretsk. It's on the verge of losing Chasiv Yar. Okay, so this has turned out to be a debacle of the worst dimensions. And if I were Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedneault, I would resign. I would be hanging my head in shame and resigning for having supported this depraved policy that was being championed by the German Greens. And we've effectively pursued a policy in Canada and NATO that has resulted in the destruction of our supposed ally, Ukraine. And there were people like me out there predicting this from day one. It was obvious that that's where this was heading. It's an absolute disgrace what they've done. I can't, on the one hand, I can't believe it. On the other hand, it's entirely predictable that the mainstream media are giving them a complete free pass. Not just them, but all the, hundreds of MPs who supported this depraved policy. They're giving them a total free pass. And the reason why they're doing this is because the corporate media supported this policy. So if they now started to criticize the politicians who pursued a policy that has destroyed Ukraine, they would be effectively indicting themselves. So they're all just sweeping it under the rug, not holding anybody accountable for any of this. It's an absolute disgrace. I believe that, and by the way, this policy was a frontal assault on the core values of the Green Party of Canada. The Green Party of Canada, one of its 6 core values is nonviolence. Was this a nonviolent solution to the war in Ukraine? We're also supposed to be champions of ecological wisdom and sustainability. The amount of damage that this war has done to the environment cannot be calculated. It cannot be estimated. It is absolutely mind-boggling, the level of contamination, the emissions, the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, one of the worst environmental crimes committed by the Biden administration. Pedneault and May have not had a word to say about any of that. They have disgraced the core values of the Green Party, and they should resign.
All right, Dimitri. Well, from the reaction of the Green Party members, what have you seen in relation to this bid to reinstall Pedneault as co-leader?
Well, I don't think I'm not getting the sense that there's a lot of enthusiasm about this. There's a large contingent of people within the Green Party. Sadly, I don't know that they constitute a majority, but it's a sizable contingent, and they have a disproportionate degree of power within the party who will do effectively whatever, Elizabeth May wants. They think Elizabeth May walks on water, because she was the first, member of the or leader of the federal Green Party to gain a seat in Parliament, and because she's repeatedly won her seat out in Saanich Gulf Islands. So they think she basically walks on water, and if she wants just Jonathan Pedneault to be the co-leader, then that must be a good thing. But I'm not getting the sense there's a lot of enthusiasm for Jonathan Pedneault. Why should there be? I mean, there's no reason to believe that Pedneault, who's just going to continue with the same political orientation and policies of Elizabeth May, is going to change the fortunes of this party. And there is a significant contingent of people in the Green Party who are actually, I think, opposed to Jonathan Pedneault becoming the co-leader, in substantial part because of his support for this depraved, pro-NATO policy in Ukraine, and the fact that there's, no indication that he is going to become a vigorous and principled critic of Canadian government foreign policy.
So the state of internal democracy within the Green Party, you've talked about it. Do you think there is much internal democracy left at this point? And is there any chance you're considering a second leadership bid in the future to drive the Green Party towards a better path?
Well, on paper, the Green Party has internal democracy, but in actual practice, Elizabeth May wields her very considerable influence, and I'll just be perfectly blunt about it, enlists the sycophants within the party hierarchy, the pro-Elizabeth May sycophants, to suppress candidates and points of view that they don't like, usually by, covert methods. So in actual practice, there really isn't a lot of internal democracy in the Green Party. As to whether I'll run again, Aidan, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's difficult to imagine running again for a party that has been so damaged. The combination of Elizabeth May and Annamie Paul and now Pedneault, all of coming along and supporting, these militarist, destructive, unprincipled policies of Western governments and NATO, and failing to stand up in a truly principled way for the victims of oppression, particularly in West Asia. So much damage has been done by these people, not just within the Canadian Green Party, but even more so within the German Green Party, to the reputation of the global green movement. I don't know if anybody, frankly, can salvage the situation. So it's hard to, persuade myself. I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but it's hard to persuade myself that it would be, that it's the best way for me to contribute by returning to Green Party politics. Last thing I'll say is I checked this morning the current projections for the Green Party of Canada in the upcoming federal election. They are projected by 338.com, which is pretty good at projecting the outcome of federal elections, to win one seat. They currently have two. They never had more than three. And for the brief period of the brief period of time during which they had three seats was during the Annamie Paul era, and Annamie Paul's insanely pro-Israel behavior caused one of our three MPs, Jenica Atwin, to defect to the Liberals. That's how damaged the party now is. And so they're projected to win one seat, and this is in an environment, Aidan, in which the national support for the Liberal Party has collapsed. It's approaching historically low levels. These are ideal circumstances for the Green Party to grow its base of support and enlarge considerably the number of seats in Parliament. And in fact, the opposite is happening. It seems that its support has declined and that its prospects of even retaining the two seats that it currently has are very limited. I think that too is a raging indictment of the era of Elizabeth May. The fact that the party is not only not better off when we're witnessing a massive collapse in support for the Liberal Party, but is actually arguably going to end up worse off.
All right, Dimitri, now I want to talk about the question of leadership for this reason, because Green Party leader Elizabeth May has said it's worth considering, quote, having CSIS screen leadership candidates to identify potential foreign affiliations with malicious actors. So before anything else, can you talk about CSIS's history of deceit and its extensive role on the ongoing China Gate farce?
Yeah, so let me just again remind people who haven't seen our discussion about the foreign interference inquiry is that the uh, the justice presiding over that inquiry herself said that intelligence analysis is of dubious utility, that it's oftentimes completely wrong, and many times is imperfect, of dubious veracity. And she said that you have to take particular care in using intelligence when it could have a negative impact on someone. Well, of course, telling somebody that they aren't fit to be the leader, to even run for the leadership of the Green Party of Canada, that would have a significantly negative impact on their reputation, potentially. So why you would want to use CSIS in this context is completely, mystifying to me in light of the comments that Justice Hogue herself offered about the utility of this intelligence. But then if you step outside of the final report and you look at the history of CSIS, okay, in 2024, again, I'm sure that Elizabeth May is aware of all of this. In 2024, a federal court judge chastised CSIS over concerns related to judicial warrants and the disclosure of information about Canadians. And according to the court, quote, CSIS's failure to live up to its obligations in this regard appears to have been an institutional failing rather than a failing of any particular individual or individuals. So that's 2024. In 2020, a federal judge called for a comprehensive review of CSIS activities after ruling that CSIS failed to disclose its reliance on information that was likely collected illegally in support of warrants to probe extremism. 4 years prior to that 2020 ruling, the federal court found CSIS illegally held on to potentially revealing electronic data about people who pose no security threat and breached its duty to inform the court of the data collection program. In 2017, CSIS settled a $35 million lawsuit brought by Black, Muslim, and gay employees alleging rampant discrimination. And in 2021, a Muslim woman who worked as a senior intelligence officer at CSIS said the systemic racism and lack of diversity she experienced firsthand at CSIS constitute a national security threat, especially in light of a recent deadly attack on a Canadian Muslim family. So undoubtedly, as I said, Elizabeth May is aware of this history. Why would she want this disgraceful agency to play any kind of a role in deciding who is and is not fit to be leader of the Green Party of Canada? Well, let me suggest to you a reason, okay? Elizabeth May knows that certain people who might at some point run to be the leader of the Green Party of Canada, me, for example, also Alex Turrell, the leader of the Green Party of Quebec, that we have views and have expressed views about Canadian foreign policy that are highly critical, that CSIS is unlikely to be sympathetic, to put it mildly, to our points of view, and that CSIS would probably not be inclined to greenlight our candidacy. She knows this. I would be very surprised. As I said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. CSIS would have absolutely no basis whatsoever to question my fitness to be the leader of the Green Party of Canada. But I would be very surprised if CSIS would actually greenlight my candidacy. So to be blunt about it, I think that that's part of what's going on here. And it may be everything that's going on here, that CSIS and Elizabeth May are ideologically aligned with each other. And she believes that CSIS, for all of its immense flaws, would effectively act as a gatekeeper to prevent people with anti-imperialist, anti-NATO, anti-US government, not US people, but US government perspectives from ever running to be the leader of the Green Party of Canada.
So thank you, Dimitri. Now, the Canada Files reported last summer that during the public hearings section of the Foreign Interference Inquiry, that ex-Conservative Party leader Aaron O'Toole wants to see CSIS screen all nomination candidates for political parties in Canada and thinks that political parties, quote, do need linkages directly with our security agencies, end quote. If the Green Party implements a policy of allowing CSIS to screen leadership candidates, could we head down the path desired by O'Toole?
Well, it's certainly going to give, moral support for the view being expressed by O'Toole. Absolutely. If we set that precedent, it's just they're going to undoubtedly other political actors in this province or in this country are going to try to expand upon the power of CSIS to determine who and who cannot be a candidate for public office. I cannot stress how anti-democratic this is, Hayden. These people are unelected officials. Okay, they have a demonstrated history of lying through their teeth. They do not respect the privacy rights of Canadians. They don't tell the truth to courts of law. Okay, they are intensely neoconservative and hegemonic in their, and white supremacist, frankly, in their perspective. They've proven that over many years of scandal after scandal. We are going to empower these people to decide who can run for political office in this country. That is insane. I can hardly think of something more anti-democratic than that. The people who are proposing that CSIS be empowered to make those decisions, they should be run out of political office and themselves be deprived of the right to run for political office because they are proposing a measure that would constitute a severe threat to Canadian democracy. This cannot be stressed enough. This is a disgraceful proposal and people should be alarmed by it.
All right, Dimitri, I think that is a powerful spot to leave things off at. Thank you very much for your time speaking to the Canada Files, Dimitri.
Thank you very much, Aidan.
Now, how can people follow up on your work?
Most of my work nowadays is posted on our YouTube channel, A Reason to Resist. And also I'm very active on Instagram and X under the handle at Dimitri Lascaris.
Well, Canada Files viewers, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this episode. If you appreciate the journalism that's being done, please consider setting up a monthly, annual, or one-time donation. If you can't afford that, no worries. Please just spread the word, help the work get farther. Goodbye, everyone. Do take care.